The biggest shakeup would have been the fact that suddenly aware of the fact that I'm black. And apparently that means something, not necessarily always a good thing.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library. Hello, friends, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Immigrant Experience in America, a place where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants living in the United States and around the world. Today, we have another great episode to share with you, and it's that of Dr. Nicole Perrotte. Welcome, Dr. Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here on the Immigrant Experience.
Yes, it's lovely to have you. Tell us a bit about who's Dr. Nicole. What is your immigrant story?
So I'm actually from the Caribbean. I'm from Grenada, a small island in the Caribbean on the southern part of the chain of islands spanning between North America and South America. We're closer to the borders of South America. Small country with just over 100,000 people. And I grew up there until about age 19 when I moved to the US to continue my studies. And so essentially, I consider Grenada to be my home. And this is my second home here in the US, having spent a couple of years here now. I essentially came to finish my studies as a physician, and I stayed to work outside of a brief stint back home in Grenada. And I've been here quite a while, raising my family and making my own way in my experience of what I want my life to look like in this country, but also as well as embracing some of what I did growing up in Grenada.
Yes, that blend of both worlds, right?
That's right.
And it's interesting because I actually came here after high school around about that age. So I'm not going to ask you, like, what month and all of that. So we go into detail. I was like, okay. So that's another connection. That's awesome. So you came to study, right? So that's the story. And that led into, I'm thinking you met your husband here, family, and this is where life is for you now.
Right, right. Although I will say I did not meet my husband until much later, but yes, husband I met here and my kids are born here. So this is where my immediate family, where they are, and it's home for now, yes.
Okay, very good. So to take us back, like what was it like? How did you come to that decision that the US was that place for you to study? And what was it like leaving home as a 19-year-old? I can imagine.
It was pretty interesting. And I think once I decided that I wanted to do medicine, I had a couple of options. I could have stayed in Grenada and go to one of the local universities in the Caribbean, or I could have gone to places like Cuba or Canada, where a lot of the other Grenadians were choosing to go as options for their own studies in medicine. And then there was also a possible path for coming to the US. And at the time, it was this elusive dream sort of vision that if you achieve that one, that was definitely the one that you would want the most because it was probably the hardest one to get. But it also was probably the one that would be the most rewarding if you were to get it. And so as it turned out, everything lined up in terms of academia, scholarships, funding, which made it easy for me to decide that this was going to be the one.
Oh, that's lovely. Lovely to hear. And I guess I'm always trying to share, thinking of my audience and trying to share opportunities for people who are, coming on the other side and looking for opportunities. I don't know if you're able to remember or share, like, what were some of those or that specific opportunity? Like, what were some of the opportunities that you saw at the time and which one in particular that worked out for you in case somebody else might be interested to go research it and see, hey, is this something that might work for me?
Right, right, right. And so there's the university in Grenada, the School of Medicine, St. George's University. And as it turns out, they give scholarships to locals. The school is an American university, and the student population is predominantly American. There are other West Indians as well, quite a few from the African continent, and there are also local Grenadians. And because of the cost, and as part of their contract with the Grenadian government, they offered scholarships to students who wanted to study medicine. And I was fortunate enough to benefit from one of those, which allowed me to attend. And that in itself is a huge burden when it comes to medical school, the cost factor. And looking at the numbers, at the end of the day, the numbers made sense. When you look at all the options on the table, that was the best option, which made the decision even easier than if that was not part of the decision making factor. If that was not part of the decision making factor, I probably would not have chosen it. But it was that great option which allowed me to take that step. And here I am today.
Great, great, great. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay. Do you remember what it was like emotionally, like leaving your family, embarking on such a journey as a young 19-year-old? Like, what were some things you had to do to prepare yourself? What was the first a few days of arrival in the US? What was the experience like for you?
I was fortunate because I had a few of my classmates who were also from Grenada and we were friends. We became friends as we were all studying together and we'd been together for over 3, 4 years at that point in time. And so we were all in approximately the same neighborhoods in the same area in New York, where a lot of immigrants land from the Caribbean. And so we were able to come together regularly and spend time together. We would go to each other's house, we'd go for a walk, explore the area. The overwhelming thing I think we were most surprised about was just how noisy, how busy, how hectic everything was. It was go, 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 go. And we came from the Caribbean where we were more laid back, more leisurely, and here we were go, 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 go. Constant, never ending, day, night, just keep go, 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 go. That was probably one of the first things that struck us.
Like, and particularly going straight to New York. Oh my goodness.
Yes, that's where we landed first, New York.
Yeah, because New York is like the pace in New York is like I'm not even sure if I've come across anywhere else that is as fast as New York, and just how the people move and things like that.
I
That's
know,
a
I
big,
know.
fast city.
It is, it is.
Lucky you had friends and others who were studying, so there was somewhat of a community of safety net for you. That's good. And so I wonder, like what was some of your aspirations at the time? Of course, you're here to study, go to med school, so that's your main thing. But, like where did you see yourself as you arrived? Like, finish med school, like, what were some of your thoughts at that time?
Right. And so the goal was finish up med school and then try to get the additional specialist training and then find a job. And that was the goal. That was the focus. Because the mentality was you're here for a purpose. You can't deviate. You can't look left. You can't look right. Stay focused and don't be distracted by all the going ons around you. So that was the focus. That was the goal. Keep going. This is what you're working towards.
Good. And what was some of the adjustment challenges? I imagine, like first winter, the rigor of studying. How different was it adapting to not being able to find the same foods, or or the multiculturalism of New York? Like, what was that like for you?
Initially, that was overwhelming because everything was the fast pace. There was no time to sit down and think and relax, as we like to say. You didn't get to lime or hang out and just not do anything. You always had to be doing something. So that was a bit overwhelming at first as well. And then on top of that, it depends on where you go. you suddenly became aware of the fact that you might be black, something that I never thought about. It's like, really?
Yeah, tell me more.
You're like, hmm, never had to think about that before, but now I have to think about that. And so hearing that was also a bit of an eye opener as well. Fortunately, in New York, the food part of it was not an issue because there were all of these cultures, lots of West Indians, and so there were even more food choices than I had experienced before. So I was able to get my own, a lot of my own local food that I was used to, but in addition, I also had the opportunity to experience and try new foods. But I think the biggest shake up would have been the fact that suddenly aware of the fact that I'm black, and apparently that means something, not necessarily always a good thing.
Yeah, so that was a shock for me too. And trying to decode what that all means to other people, basically, not necessarily that you internalize or had those feelings of, you have your own self confidence and belief in yourself and knowing who you are. But then here we come with these outsiders who are telling you, okay, so this is who you are. This is the box we put you in. And these are the qualities that we attribute to you because you're in that box. It was, boy, prepare yourself, folks who are from the other places trying to, leave and go to other places where you might be facing things like this. So it could be quite a culture shock for you.
It was, it was, it was.
So I'm wondering then, so what was it like going through school and, obviously now you're Dr. Nicole, so you finished school, but what was it like compared to I don't know if you've gotten stories from your other colleagues who may have gone to Canada or other places. Like, what was the rigor like going through med school here?
It was pretty rigorous. I mean, that part, it's well established. The rigor was nothing I'd experienced before. There were lots of long days, lots of long nights, nights where you couldn't sleep as well as you wanted to. And that in itself can be very hard as you try to adapt new place. You're not in your usual surroundings. And because then I also discovered that, okay, so you're black, then you're realizing that you have to speak up and you have to learn that in the Caribbean, the tendency is to recognize that because you're quiet, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It may mean that you're thinking about what is being said, and the response that you give, especially if it's an appropriate and thoughtful response, would let people know that, well, no, you're paying attention, as opposed to the response you might get here is, well, you don't seem to be as engaged, as involved. You're not speaking up. We don't hear you. Completely different. And so my personality was more to be, oh, we are laid back. We are quiet. We don't try to be over the top. We try to make sure that we're contributing in a meaningful way, not being loud and braggadocious, so to speak. And here you realize that you have to actually push yourself because you have to be like, yes, I'm here and I'm ready. And yes, make sure you speak and you're there to jump in and speak at the first opportunity. Otherwise, you'll easily find yourself getting pushed aside, which is what I discovered early on that when I didn't say anything, like, oh, you're not paying attention. And you realize that, but I am. I just didn't have anything to add to the conversation. So that was also quite an experience and quite a learning curve.
And I've heard other people say the same thing, and I can attest to that too. There's participation points in some curriculum, right? You have to speak up and share your thoughts and you get extra points for that. And if you don't, you lose out on those points or people don't take you seriously if you're not vocal about your thoughts or participate orally in class, which can be interesting because over time I have found that when you're in certain spaces, you find people rushing to be the first to have something to add to show themselves worthy, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's very thoughtful or
Correct.
of value, right? And so you also have to be
Yes.
careful too. I mean, that's the other side of the sword that I think I would caution people. Like you participate, yes, but you also want to add value. But be careful and watch out for the groups or the folks who are trying to force you to be the one to to be seen or for whatever reason, right? And sometimes it's not as valuable, right? So, but that's
Correct.
interesting that you're sharing that too. I've heard it a few times here on the podcast. So you finished school. Tell us, what part of medicine do you practice?
So I'm a board certified internal medicine physician. I opted for internal medicine because it's, I think in medicine we like to joke, and it's pretty broad. We're able to do many things, and that held my interest, dealing primarily with adults and some of the complexities for some of the other common problems that you often see in healthcare in adults. So I did that for many years and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay. So you say you call it thinking medicine?
Yes, that's what we
Oh,
joke amongst ourselves. Yes, because we spend a lot of time thinking about what is the possible underlying cause of XYZ. It's one of those, it's a joke within the field,
oh,
as opposed to, let's say,
interesting.
like the surgeon who likes to cut, or the ER physician who is always running in the ER trying to take care and stabilize patients. So it's one of those, we're constantly like, let's think about this for a minute. Let's see what's
Yeah.
going on here. What else is going on? What else do I need to think about? What else could be happening here that would explain what's happening?
Right. Oh, interesting, interesting. Okay, okay, Dr. Nicole. So we met through a group here called Mocha Moms originally, and then second time we met,
On LinkedIn.
was that LinkedIn? Or it was through, we
Yes.
had a little Christmas presentation, and then we realized, oh, we had met at this Father's Day golf event that we had
Oh
attended.
my gosh, yes. That would have been the fourth time then.
Yes, I think that was the first time I might have met you in person, and then you
Right.
went, we connected on the Christmas event, sale event,
Yes.
and then we connected on LinkedIn, and then we went to the Christmas gala. Okay, wow, so that is number four. Yes, and then we just kind of put the pieces together like, oh, that's you, that's the same person, da 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 da.
Yes. That
But
was funny.
but we got to talking about your program for burnout and managing life. And can you give us a story around how you came to become a burnout coach?
Right. Right. And so essentially, I'm practicing internal medicine and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I did what we call hospital based medicine. So I didn't have an office. I worked primarily in the hospital seeing sick patients, patients with strokes, with GI bleeds, heart attacks, that sort of thing. And it's a fast paced, very go, 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 go environment because people are critically ill and dying every day. And it was enjoyable. I loved it. And then fast forward maybe 10 years or so, and and I met my husband, and then we had twins, and I suddenly discovered that there aren't enough hours in the day because you need so many more hands to do everything that needed to be done. And then fast forward a couple of years, turns out my son also had special needs. So then now I really needed more hands, and there were definitely not enough hands going around. And so I was trying to do as much as we can as I could because we, neither one of us, we're both immigrants and we don't have any family around. So it was literally the two of us working and trying to pull this off. And there was a lot of burning up the candle on both ends. And the result was simply burnt out because when you keep giving, 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 and doing things and not taking care of yourself, not taking that time to sleep, nourish your body, making sure that you're looking after your emotional well being, making sure that you're connecting with others, all those things. And you're trying to put 100% at work. You're trying to make sure that you're taking 100%, giving 100% to the babies as well. And there is nothing left over for you. That was where the problem started. And so that's how I found myself slipping and sliding into burnout until I realized, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I don't even understand what is happening. I don't recognize me. I don't recognize the life around me because none of this makes sense. Everything seems to be a chore. I'm working uphill because the work is never done. And you don't feel rewarded. You don't feel like you're doing anything good. You feel like you're exhausted all the time. You feel like nothing is good enough. You feel like the world is just this heavy weight on your shoulder that is not coming off. It's just there. And you wake up every morning and it's still there. And you keep trying, but then after a while you're tired of trying because you're just stressed over everything not going the way it's supposed to go. And as the time went on, it just got worse and worse until I realized, oh my gosh, something has to give. I was fortunate enough that I was in the hospital I was in. We had someone who did a program that allowed us to spend a few days doing meditation and mindfulness. And we did that, and a few of us signed up for it. About 10, 12 of us in our group signed up for it. And we were shocked at the end of the fourth day, the changes that we experienced, the calmness, the fact that we were sleeping better, the fact that we were not reacting to everything around us, the fact that we were able to have a little bit more ownership of what was happening. Okay, I don't feel good. This is not a good response to whatever situation I'm in. Or the way this person interacted with me. No, it's not just because I am here tired. This is because this situation is not a good situation. Being able to identify all those things for what they were and then realizing that you're not alone, that there is definitely that element of burnout and fatigue that was there. And once that happened, I continued to do it for quite a while. And I would say that was probably that shift, that moment in time, that pivotal shift that made me realize the impact of paying attention and focusing on your mental well-being, because it's easy to not pay attention and just keep slipping and sliding until it's too late. But that one single course was a game changer for me.
Wow. Okay. You shared a little bit about your experience during COVID and how you were able to decide that you wanted to make a change. How did that all come together for you?
So COVID was probably a year and maybe a year and a half after this particular course. And so I continued to do the same exercises, but not to the same extent as I had been. I was still practicing the meditation techniques, but not in the way that I had before. And then COVID happened. And as we all know, we know how that was a disaster, especially for those of us who were on the front lines. I was also in the hospital at the time, and a lot of us were essentially just traumatized from the whole experience, to put it quite bluntly. And I realized at the time that you really need to dig deep and realize that what is important, and that if everybody's going to panic, this is not a time for me to lose my mind, because as much as I can do to help myself, I need to do that. Unfortunately, there were quite a few other coaches who had been well established who recognized what was happening. And so they were offering services, and I was able to connect with a wonderful coach who helped me through the process. And one of the things that I started doing during that time was doing a daily gratitude journal. And there's nothing like doing a gratitude journal during COVID. I mean, you might think that there's nothing to be grateful for, but you could actually find stuff every day to be grateful for. And some of the things you would never think about, but the simplest things. I mean, we all appreciated Zoom, but there was something about being able to connect with others, for we didn't have that ability, especially when we were in that initial stage and everyone was social distancing and within their bubble. That was something. That was definitely something. But being able to find something every day in spite of the chaos, in spite of the bad news, in spite of all the tragedy that was around, was very helpful. Very, very helpful. It shifts your mindset. It shifts the way your perspective on life. It gives you appreciation that you wouldn't have normally.
Wow. So, mindfulness meditation, gratitude journaling. So, take us to the point where you decide, okay, I'm walking away from being a doctor, like, and we know, like, in the immigrant community, you don't do that. I mean, I can see some parents like screaming, running around the house, pulling out their hair, like, what are you doing, leaving this good job? Talking about you're becoming a coach. Are you losing your mind? They probably would try to tie you down in the house and give you some herbs to drink to
Oh
bring you to your
yes, oh
senses.
yes, oh yes, oh yes. No, there was definitely that. I mean, yeah, there was definitely that. I mean, walking away from the hospital. I mean, I still practice medicine, but not like that anymore. I don't practice in the hospital anymore. Thankfully, one of the things that came out of COVID was being able to work remotely. So I was able to navigate into a remote opportunity after that. But it's hilarious. A lot of parents who would not, even mine, they were definitely not impressed that I was not going into the hospital seeing patients every day. What do you mean? That doesn't seem like a viable option. How are you going to live? Can you pay the bills? Does that mean that all of this work and energy that you put in was a waste? No, it doesn't. It just means that I've opened up new opportunities for myself. That is all it means. And so there was definitely that initial, oh my gosh, you've definitely lost your mind. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, you're gonna literally be in the poorhouse. So there was that concern that they all have, which was yes. And you try to say, no, it's okay. It's going to be okay. There are lots of people doing this. And they're like, no, this doesn't make sense. I don't know anybody who does that. Yes, I was interested. But then fast forward a couple of years later, she's like, oh, so and so is also working from home, and so and so and so and so. And I'm like, mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So what comes to mind is I'm thinking like, can you speak to like the realities of being a medical doctor? Because I hear some serious statistics about, the stress in the field and, the reality of it. Because I think, for children of immigrants, we only have three options. And I didn't choose any of them, right? A doctor, lawyer, or an engineer.
Right.
I may have gone down the law route had I had some mentoring or like people pushing me in that area. I've considered doing it in later in life, but no, hospitals are not for me. I wouldn't have done medicine, engineering, maybe not, but probably I would have done law. But
Okay.
so give us some realities of like the statistics in the field, like how burnt out and some of the issues that are affecting doctors for anybody who might be considering going into medicine, like a reality check of this is what it is like, not to scare people away, but just to understand that there's some really serious challenges with that profession and people do get to burn out. And I'm wondering how many of your colleagues during that time actually either left or pivoted to other things as well.
Yep. Unfortunately, the statistics for all of those are at my fingertips, and they're not good. They're not good. So, in terms of burnout, due to the high stress, it's a highly regulated field, highly regulated from many points of views. We have regulations from the different societies regulating medicine, the boards, whether the specific boards, internal medicine boards, or pediatrics boards, or surgery boards, they all have their own regulations. There are state boards that are also in place, and they also have regulations. There are also mandated regulations from the government and Medicare, and as well the insurance companies. So there's a lot of regulation. And then on top of that, there is also the need to see people, which is why most of us went into the field to help people. And so burnout is something that's prevalent as of 2024, early 2024, the latest set of numbers, it showed about 56% of physicians are burnout, with predominantly women physicians being burnt out. For women physicians, it's that you're a professional woman physician working, but you're also doing, a lot of women are also mothers and they're also taking care of children and running the home life. As a result, that those two things lead to an enormous pressure, enormous weight that leads to burnout. So that is one thing that is out there. The other concerning statistic is suicide. There are about 400 suicides every year. That's at least one doctor a day. And it is scary. And I myself have lost colleagues and friends to suicide. And the sad part about it is there is no, it is changing now, but until recently, it was something that the regulations did not allow for for physicians to actually seek mental health treatment. So something as simple as Prozac, which a lot of Americans are taking, if you were treated for depression, that is something that potentially could affect your license. You don't have a license, you can't practice. And so that was a big thing. So for a lot of physicians who found themselves in that place, unfortunately, the numbers speak for themselves. 400 who felt that they had no other option but to take their own life. So that is something that's out there. It is very unfortunate, and it's essentially the equivalent of at least one med school class a year. In terms of another sad statistic, in terms of how many physicians are leaving medicine, it is we're already short, and it's getting shorter. We have lost easily over 200 physicians in the last couple of years after COVID each year. I think it was just over 200 in right after COVID in 22, 23. And then last year, I think it was 150-ish, 100,000, 150-ish thousand who switched from clinical practice to other forms of using their medical degree. So there's a lot of room for change. It's very concerning. The numbers speak for themselves. It's one of those things that, as an individual, you can't change the system, is what I say, but you have to work on yourself. How you're going to navigate in the system, what you're going to do to make sure that you yourself don't become a victim, and what you could do to ensure that you thrive within the system. That is where the focus has to be, because yes, we'll have to make a lot of changes and they're happening, but it's the equivalent of moving the Titanic, trying to turn course as we're heading towards an iceberg. Multiple people will have to be working on different sides, making those small incremental movements before we could finally do that. But in the meantime, while waiting for that to happen, you have to work on yourself, which is what I always tell women in medicine.
Join us again next time for part 2 of this episode. We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.